going to tweet about the session, please use the following hashtag, which is hashtag SADC GBV Model Law. I will include all of them on the chat group for everyone to do. And also the second hashtag that we're using is hashtag #GBV. Those are the two hashtags that we're using. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Modise, for that update. Just to remind participants that we should keep our mics on mute unless we have the floor. This morning, our meeting is a consultative meeting for regional parliaments, with regional parliaments regarding the SADC Model Law on gender-based violence. As I start, let me observe protocol, and in this regard, I wish to recognize Her Excellency Ms. Boemo Sekoma, the Secretary General of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. I also wish to recognize Honorable Ibrahima, the third Deputy Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Honorable Dr. Anne Leonardo, Chairperson of the East African Legislative Assembly Women's Caucus, Honorable Pamela Marseille Simoni, who is the Secretary to the East African Legislative Assembly Women's Caucus, Honorable Marie-Rose Nguyini Efa, the President of the African Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development, Mr. Gala Nase, the Head of Committee, Documentation, Research and Library Division at the Pan-African Parliament, Madam Banite Dibateza, who is the Program Officer and Network Coordinator for the Network for Women Parliamentarians at the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Ms. Bridget Filion, the Consultant on Gender Partnership Program at the IPU. I also wish to recognize this morning citizens of the SADC region who are following proceedings on the various platforms as advised by our media officer, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. The meeting this morning brings together parliaments of the African region, parliaments from across the globe that are regional, international in nature, and with the objective of consulting with the SADC Parliamentary Forum regarding the draft model law on gender-based violence that we have developed. The consultation should be understood within the context of the process that SADC-PF undertakes whenever it develops model laws. In typical parliamentary fashion, SADC-PF engages various stakeholders whenever it undertakes development of model laws. So in this regard, just to give a perspective to distinguished participants in terms of the wide nature of the consultations that SADC-PF has held since we entered the consultative stage of the development of the model law. We've consulted quite widely with various stakeholders. For instance, in August, we were consulting with the media. We consulted with the SADC lawyers, also held consultations with the human rights commissioners and ombudspersons. We had consultations with civil society. We had consultations with judges, jurists, and judicial officers. We have had consultations with youth groups. We have had consultations with the ministries of and the departments of gender of SADC member states. We have met with the police under the umbrella body of SAPCO, which is the association of the head of police organizations within the SADC region. We have met with national committees, relevant national committees of our parliaments, those that are focusing on gender, children's rights, legal affairs, police and justice. We have had consultations with the legal drafters from the ministries of justice and parliaments. We also have going to have a similar, a repeat process with these legal drafters from the 4th to the 7th of October. We have held consultations with a joint sitting of SADC PF standing committees, and we have met with UN agencies and donors. We have consulted with religious and traditional leaders. We have consulted with yourselves today. We have also consulted with magistrates drawn from across the SADC member states. We will continue beyond today with consultations with prosecutors, with legal aid officers. This is just to show you how wide the consultations have been. And this is in line with the mandate placed upon SADC Parliamentary Forum as a parliamentary body to ensure that there is public participation, stakeholder participation when we develop model laws. Then this morning, as we meet, allow me to just give an overview of the program so that we are all on board as we proceed with our meeting. So we will, in terms of the program this morning, commence our meeting with welcome remarks from Her Excellency Madam Sekoma, the Secretary General of SADC Parliamentary Forum, following which we shall receive the presentation of the draft SADC Model Law on GBV by none other than our very capable legal drafter for the model law, Ms. Eva Jala. And then following which we will then proceed into plenary. And then after the deliberations in plenary, we will conclude by allowing the representatives of the different regional and international parliamentary bodies to deliver their concluding and solidarity statements, and then we will adjourn. So that's in brief our program for this morning. At this juncture, I have the honor and privilege of requesting the Secretary General to deliver a welcome remarks to the meeting. Over to you, Madam SG.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Sheonene Gurasha, and the focal person for parliamentary business at the SADC Parliamentary Forum. Allow me to stand on the protocol that has been established and welcome and recognize Honorable Mema Manatau Ibrahima, the third Deputy Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Honorable Dr. N. Ito Leonardo, the Chairperson of the East Africa Legislative Assembly's Women's Caucus, Honorable Pamela Masei Simon, Secretary to the East Africa Legislative Assembly's Women's Caucus, Honorable Marie-Rose Ngwini Ifa, President of the African Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development, Mr. Galal Nasir, Head of Committee Documentation Research and Library Division of the Pan-African Parliament, Ms. Benite Dibateza, Programs Officer, Network Coordinator for the Network of Women Parliamentarians at the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Ms. Bridget Filon, a consultant working on gender partnership programs with the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Ms. Eva Jala, our esteemed legal drafter, citizens of the SADC region, citizens of East Africa, West Africa, and the globe, following proceedings on our virtual platforms, members of the media, dear colleagues, and distinguished participants from our national parliaments and other parts of the globe. It's with immense pleasure that I welcome you to this interparliamentary event and business of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. National parliamentary organizations. Perspective. Thus, today, we are celebrating parliamentarism under interparliamentary cooperation in a unique dimension under the umbrella of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. As the Secretary General, I'm honored to be addressing this diverse audience of distinguished representatives from august organizations all around the world. In this respect, I wish to start by paying a tribute to the noble cause of interparliamentary cooperation and by recognizing the resilience of interparliamentary networks around the world that have staunchly stood the test of time despite operational challenges occasioned by COVID-19. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, yet while interparliamentary organizations continue to promote stable democracies and the sovereignty and independence of parliaments worldwide, there's a lot that remains to be done for democracy and human rights to be instilled across the world. I'm confident that you'll corroborate the forum's view that together we can go further. It's important for me to indicate why engagement with interparliamentary organizations is crucial for the forum. Having said this, I wish to turn to the mainstay of today's theme of discussions, which is the SADC Model Law on Gender-Based Violence. It is indeed apposite that interparliamentary organizations have a comprehensive say on the SADC Model Law on Gender-Based Violence, which is currently in the process of finalization, as indicated by the Director of Ceremonies. As you may be aware, this model law on gender-based violence is well captured and was diarized for consultations to make sure that we reach as many as diverse a stakeholder from the public and private sector, as well as the judiciary. Interparliamentary organizations are peer organizations to the SADC Parliamentary Forum. It was therefore imperative for us to garner your esteemed insights as a final step before validating and adopting the model law during our 50th plenary assembly session, which will be held from the 10th, 11th, and 12th of December. Moreover, the participants of interparliamentary organizations will be quintessential to disseminate the SADC model law on gender-based violence within the SADC region, within the entities, which goes beyond once it's adopted and invite as many partners to engage with us in the post-adoption strategies. You'll agree with me, distinguished delegates, that gender-based violence knows no bounds, and it is not delimited by territory. Gender-based violence is a contemporary human rights issue. The right to health and the right to life. Gender-based violence affects all regions of the world without fail, and it preys on the wealthy as well as the poor. At the same time, I'm confident that all major interparliamentary organizations around the world subscribe to the tenets of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, from which have stemmed the ensuing international covenants on civil and political rights and the corresponding international covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights. Distinguished delegates, if we are to believe and uphold the principle laid down in international covenants, then gender-based violence is a problem from all without distinction. In this respect, member states have a duty to prevent their citizens from suffering inhuman, degrading treatment and punishment. If we are to believe and uphold the principles laid down in international conventions, then gender-based violence is a problem for all of us without distinction. From this perspective, the SADC Model Law on GBV is that a model law that can be utilized for benchmarking purposes by all interparliamentary organizations around the world, and by extension, all corresponding national member parliaments. While the SADC Model Law on GBV will remain as a benchmark and guiding reference, the model law may be adapted to frame legal context or legal frameworks Model laws have the potential of exerting ripple effects and influencing regions and people beyond geographical scope of SADC. I thus once again invite you to consider this session of today as serendipitous and as a stepping stone towards further collaborative opportunities. Interparliamentary organizations can thus act as emissaries to share the model law on GBV in their respective GBV legal frameworks. Dear Excellencies, colleagues, and distinguished participants, in your capacity as representatives of interparliamentary organizations, you'll be in the right position to attest to the fact that model laws only mark a beginning. Indeed, the model law on GBV will need to be progressively domesticated once adopted by the Forum, and thereafter the Forum will continue to monitor the domestication efforts made by member states through the work conducted by its oversight organ, the Regional Parliamentary Model Laws Oversight Committee. Thus, looking forward, the Forum and interparliamentary organizations need to join hands and master joint efforts to discuss issues such as duality of norms and the normative divide that exists between national and international law, the concepts of monism, including concepts of dualism, the need to identify the bottlenecks to domestications that our parliaments or governments struggle with, to cite a few. The meeting of today is thus also to reflect on the ways and means to pave the way forward for the SADC model law on GBV by engaging your reflections to jointly tackle GBV by capacity development. This would include regularly building the capacity of parliamentarians on identifying the challenges to domestication and sharing cross-learning experiences that can save the time and energy for proactive members of parliament who want to bolster their GBV frameworks at national level. Honorable Excellencies, capacity development will also need to be targeted to legislative staff of state law offices and parliaments, as well as those that assist gender caucuses. There's also a further need for interparliamentary organizations, including the forum, to reflect on the value that model laws, original instruments made by interparliamentary bodies, bring to the existing body of international law. And in this respect, how far can the model law on GBV influence international law? Within the scope of its mandate under the Strategic Plan of 2019 to 2023, the SADC Parliamentary Forum is thus poised to act as a think tank to attract ideas and proposals from peer interparliamentary organizations around the world in view of spearheading issues such as benchmarking and domestication that need to be promptly overcome for parliamentarians to incorporate model laws within the national legal system, including the SADC model law on GBV, which will be the subject of today's discussion. In addition, the forum will be keen to collaborate with like-minded interparliamentary organizations to pool resources and develop advocacy content that can further facilitate the assimilation of the SADC model law on GBV, not only by Parliament, but by other stakeholders in the lawmaking process, such as line ministries, technocrats, civil society organizations, to cite a few. Advocacy content include parliamentary manuals. It includes brochures, as well as animated videos, cartoons, or any other content that can appeal to the attention of stakeholders and buttress the need to address GBV through a legislative framework, with the model law serving in the backdrop as a guiding normative standard. Distinguished colleagues and participants, I wish to end by saying that your collaboration today is highly appreciated as the forum embarks into the final stages of the adoption of the model law on gender-based violence. In the months to come, the forum will be finalizing its dissemination plan for the SADC model law, pursuant to its adoption to the 50th Plenary Assembly session. And representatives present today are invited to engage the organizations to participate constructively to this exercise. The forum firmly believes that small steps can turn into giant steps through earnest collaboration of like-minded organizations, which are unified by the shared vision to eradicate gender-based violence once and for all. On this note, Your Excellencies and distinguished participants, I wish to thank you again for your attendance today, and I wish you all a pleasant session. I thank you. You are muted, Mr. Kurasha.
Thank you very much, SG, for those remarks, which set the tone for the consultation that we are going to have ahead of us. One can not miss the emphasis you place on the need to build on the bonds of solidarity and interparliamentary cooperation in our attempt to deal with the issue of GBV, which evidently is a transboundary issue, which is a human rights issue, and collaboration, as you said, SG between the parliaments, provide opportunities for benchmarking and pulling of resources together to be able to put a joint show. The emphasis on the role of regional parliaments in bringing to bear the provisions of international law, the provisions of international obligations that our various member states in our regions are part to. It's also another important area of emphasis from your remarks. We thank you very much for those remarks, Madam. At this juncture, I also recognize the third Deputy Speaker of ECOWAS Parliament. I see you, Madam, just joined the meeting. As you would have seen from the documentation, we have East African Legislative Assembly in the meeting. We have ECOWAS Parliament. We have Pan-African Parliament. We have IPU. We have CPA. And we also have a representation of the European Parliament. We shall now proceed to invite our distinguished legal drafter to take the floor and make a presentation on the GBV model law. Over to you, Madam Jala.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. May they enable my sharing, because it's currently disabled.
ICT, please assist.
It's been enabled.
Greetings to you all, distinguished representatives and esteemed participants. May I just say all protocols observed. Let me begin by taking you through some insights on how the GBV model law was developed, taking into account certain research factors, legal concepts, and principles, mainly common law and constitutional. UN and SADC tools and international instruments dealing with obligations of state parties on GBV. The model law, as you've all observed, is comprehensive, not only by its size, but also the depth of its propositions. It recognizes human rights of the individual, provides for access to justice, effective response to GBV cases, prevention and intervention matters, and supporting measures to ensure that the fight against GBV is efficacious. I need not explain to you that the model law is soft law. It sets a gold standard to be achieved by member states as it embraces best international and regional practices on how to deal with GBV as part of the criminal and administrative justice systems, with an aim of ensuring access to justice for all victims of GBV. The model law is persuasive to SADC member states, as it points out a number of lacuna and fragmentation in their national laws dealing with GBV, and provides for efficacious propositions which can easily be adapted or adopted in member states' national laws. Two approaches have been taken in developing the model law: gender-sensitive and human rights-based approaches. The model law is an instrument to help member states domesticate it progressively by incorporating substantial parts into their national laws. So what is the purpose of the model law? It's a guiding tool. It will provide some of the following: guidance on the scope and content of GBV provisions to be provided for in national GBV laws. Encourage national legislatures to enact GBV laws where these do not exist, or where they do exist but do not conform with this model law, to review such laws and enact relevant GBV laws that do conform. They provide support to national laws during the implementation stage, especially where gaps still exist in national laws. The model law acts as a yardstick to national policy analysts, legislators, and implementers as to best practices in enacting and dealing with GBV. It reinforces a commonality of a regional approach in dealing with GBV laws, measures, and strategies to help eliminate GBV. A tall task, but doable. And it also acts as a stimulus for debate, awareness, and advocacy. Therefore, the GBV model law will be a governance tool to assist member states develop and enact national laws on GBV, or revise or reform existing laws on GBV in order to meet their international, continental, and regional commitments relating to human rights, and more specifically, fight against gender-based violence. The underlying rationale is to protect victims and probable victims of GBV, punish perpetrators, and ensure that human rights are upheld in accordance with international, continental, and regional standards and requirements. GBV, as you all know, covers domestic violence, sexual harassment in the workplace, human trafficking, and sexual and emotional abuse, economic violence, etc. This is to name just a few. When referring to GBV, the discussion is not just about the act of violence, but also about education and prevention, as well as victim assistance. GBV not only has terrible effects on the victim, but impacts negatively on society at large, with serious social and economic consequences. It is a national issue, which requires drastic national interventions through the highest tool of governance, the law. The law. In developing the gender-based violence model law, we took into account two basic definitions and worked with these definitions. The first one was the United Nations UN definition, which states as follows: any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Similarly, the definition of GBV as provided by SADC is as follows: all acts perpetrated against women, men, boys, and girls, on the basis of their sex, which causes or could cause them physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, or economic harm, including the threat to take such acts or to undertake the imposition of arbitrary restrictions on or deprivation of fundamental freedoms in private or public life, in peacetime and during situations of armed or other forms of conflict. Let me now move on to discuss some preliminary provisions in relation to the model law. Looking at application and scope, the model law applies to all persons without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, age, language, religion, nationality, political or other opinion, cultural beliefs or practices, property, birth or family status, sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnic or social origin, or disabilities, taking into account the special needs and circumstances of women, children, and other vulnerable persons. The model law applies when the offense is committed within the territory of a member state, on board a vessel or aircraft that is registered under the laws of a member state at the time the offense was committed, or by a national of a member state whose extradition is refused on the grounds of nationality. Therefore, the model law has provisions relating to how member states can provide for extraterritorial application of their laws. The model law applies to non-cohabiting or non-marital relationships, individuals with family relationships to one another, sexual relationships, members of the same household, including ascendants, descendants, persons related by blood or affinity, minors or disabled individuals under guardianship or custody, other persons residing in and employees of that household, spouse or former spouse, and violence against or between heterosexuals, lesbians, bisexuals, homosexuals, transgender persons, same-sex person, non-binary people, and sex workers. So as you can see, we try to be as broad as is possible to leave no one behind. It is all inclusive. Let me turn to some notable provisions in the model law. The human-based approach and policy direction that we have taken in developing the law. One of the most fundamental provision is that dealing with discrimination, human rights. We urge in the model law that governments enact laws prohibiting all forms of discrimination in the performance of public or private functions, or exercise of public or private powers, including prohibiting of discrimination in economic and social life or activities, in accessing official documentation, such as national identity documents, health records, and qualification certificates, in education and vocational training, learning and guidance, in and at a place of employment and recruitment, retentions, promotions, dismissals, and payment of remuneration and allowances, in the provision of health services and healthcare, and as otherwise provided in the model law, which is quite extensive on these issues, even going as far as providing the processes and procedures to be followed. Another notable provision is that of protection from gender-based violence. A person shall not be subjected to any form of gender-based violence, including being sold, enslaved, trafficked, or abducted by any other person. A woman and a child shall not be subjected to any form of gender-based violence. We put emphasis on women and children because of their vulnerability, and not because we want to restrict the scope of the model law. But we pay particular attention to the vulnerable. Women have the right to refuse sexual acts, including acts within marriage and relationships that put the woman at risk of infection, such as HIV or other sexually transmitted infections. And they have the right to refuse any act not desirable by them. And such refusal shall not be a ground for divorce. Further, marriage, cohabitation, or a romantic or intimate relationship shall not constitute a defense to a charge of marital rape or any other form of gender-based violence. There's many more protection provided in the model law. But I assume you've all read the model law, so are very familiar with them. These are just notable provisions that I'm pointing out. We've got a whole part on access to justice, a very detailed part on access to justice. Notable provisions relate to the procedural protections that we have provided. And I think these are important enough to dwell a little bit more on them, because they change certain concepts and beliefs relating to evidential rules. So the model law mainly incorporates the requirements as stipulated in some laws, national laws of member states, international, regional, and continental instruments, and recommendations made in research documents written by protagonists. Further, the part on access to justice incorporates throughout the entire proceedings The rights of victims. The following are notable. The right to reasonable, accurate, and timely notice of any judicial institution proceeding or parole proceeding involving the crime of GBV or any release or escape of an accused. The victim's right to be informed of their rights, remedies, and victim support services, and on how to obtain them, in addition to information about their role and opportunities to participate in judicial and quasi-judicial proceedings, meaning we have taken a survivor-centered approach in developing these processes. The right to seek restitution from the offender or compensation from the state is paramount in fighting GBV. The right to safety and privacy and to be free from hardship during the dictation, investigation, and prosecution process, which requires legal provisions to ensure the safety, privacy, and dignity of victims and their families at all stages of the criminal justice process, such as witness and victim protection programs, measures to exclude the public from the courtroom, use of testimonial aids like screens or CCTV, and support persons, the prohibition to publish the victim's name or other intimate details. Very important. Access to free legal aid and judicial and administrative support, including interpretation services for all, including asylum seekers, refugees, stateless persons, and persons without documentation. We must not leave anyone behind. Even if there are foreigners in our jurisdictions, they need protection, and protection they must be given. The right to speak to a female officer where possible, whether it be the police or any other criminal justice official. Claims of self-defense by women who have been victims of violence are taken into account in investigations, prosecutions, and sentencing, and not just merely ignored or pushed aside, as usually is. No, they must be taken into account. Ensuring that evidentiary rules are non-discriminatory and the outmoded cautionary rule, the plague to women, the admissibility of hearsay evidence, and the drawing of inferences from the absence of previous consistent statements, or from the length of delay between when the offense took place and when the victim reported it to the police or other law enforcement officers, should not be admissible. We understand that the rules, principles of common law and statute law take a long time to change. But we need to start somewhere. Statute law is there to assist. We may need to look at our constitutional laws and see how best we can change some of these evidentiary rules, which are great obstacles to the fight against GBV. We understand that statute law is organic and it must develop with the needs of its people or otherwise become obsolete. Further, claims of self-defense by women who have been victims of violence are taken into account in investigations, prosecutions, and sentencing, ensuring that evidentiary rules are non-discriminatory. I'm sorry, I've gone through this. I don't know how I've repeated it. It must be so important. The following are also included. Introduction of the complainant's sexual history in both civil and criminal proceedings is prohibited. Evidence of prior acts of violence, abuse, stalking, and exploitation by the perpetrator is considered during judicial proceedings in accordance with the principles of national criminal law. The model law also deals at length with capacity building and awareness. It endeavors to ensure that adequate training is provided to all relevant public officials, such as judges, police officers, social workers, and immigration officers, for effective GBV detection, prevention, investigation, prosecution, protection, and awareness on GBV. Support for GBV victims, gender-sensitive judgments, and implementation of court decisions, respectively. The model law also sets out provisions for encouraging advocacy, activism, and communication with and involvement of the media, traditional leaders, leaders in the community, neighbors, and religious leaders in the fight against GBV. We emphasize in the model law that public awareness must use evidence-based approaches that have proved to be successful elsewhere, be adapted to the age, gender, and nature of activities of the targeted groups, and address social, cultural, and religious constraints, including masculinity and unequal gender relations, be carried out in schools and other institutions of learning, workplaces, and rural and urban communities. And we also ensured in the model law that member states allocate adequate resources for these activities, because we know and understand they could be costly to undertake. We also provide for training of other public officials, such as child prohibition officers, judicial officers, law enforcement officers, employers, teachers, academics, I said already, immigration officers, traditional leaders I've cited, and other relevant public officers and policymakers at all levels of the state on the dangers and effects of gender-based violence, gender equity, equality, and human rights, the legal protections that must be activated and put in place to address the real threats of gender-based violence, and the need for effective means and mechanisms for victims to access justice, the link between national development, economic growth, the economic empowerment of society, and gender-based violence. There is a link. Reporting on matters related to gender-based violence and the processes and procedures related to handling of cases of gender-based violence, and the programs and support services that exist for victims, and the objectives and requirements of the law. Everyone who is impacting on or handles GBV cases must be taken for training, because not everyone understands these issues. We've We've also provided for, in our general provisions, financial resources and budgeting for GBV. Member states are urged to budget specifically for and dedicate resources to the implementation of the measures, strategies, and interventions put in place to eradicate GBV, support GBV victims, prosecute GBV cases, and provide compensatory relief for victims of GBV. We urge ministers who are responsible for the GBV portfolio and that of finance to establish an anti-gender-based violence fund or recommend funds to be directly allocated to a portfolio ministry for purposes of supporting the general implementation of the measures, interventions, capacity building programs, public sensitization, and advocacy campaigns, and other matters related to eradication of gender-based violence. Our general provisions also emphasize on regular monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. Again, adequate funds must be put aside for this important function. Monitoring and evaluation and reporting of customary, religious, and national laws, policies, strategies, measures, and interventions relating to gender-based violence, including prohibitions and prevention and intervention measures to ensure compliance with the law, is paramount, is critical to the fight against gender-based violence. Technical, human, and financial resources which are available to ensure that such resources are adequate for the implementation of the measures and interventions provided in the law must be monitored, evaluated, and reported on, as well as assess the legal system and the effectiveness of remedies, offenses, and penalties relating to gender-based violence offenses, including the obstacles faced by particular groups of women in assessing justice. All these need monitoring. They need evaluation. They need to be reported on. Further, we need to report and evaluate certain proposals of the laws which need to be amended and reviewed or done away with, so that the fight against gender-based violence is a continuous fight. It's a continuous improvement of the legal frameworks, the administrative frameworks. Only then shall we reach a stage when we feel that gender-based violence has been adequately dealt with. We need also to ensure that all recommendations relating to adequate funding is actually being done and implemented. I thought I'll take you through this very short exposition, because I take it that you have all read the model law. And I'll be happy to hear your reflections, recommendations, and constructive criticism today. I also hope you'll be able to populate this model law in your parliaments. I thank you. I beg to move.
Thank you very much, Madam Eva, for that impassioned, elaborate presentation. At this juncture, I wish to invite the participants to make comments, to ask any questions. I also wish to indicate that we will provide an email address to which participants may submit any further comments or make further submissions beyond the meeting. It is gbv@sadcpf.org. I will request my colleagues from ICT to paste the same inside the chat box. I recognize Honorable Ain Ito Leonardo, the chairperson of the Women's Caucus from the East African Legislative Assembly. You have the floor, Madam. Honorable Leonardo, you have the floor.
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Clearly. I just cannot see you.
Can you see me?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Missouri. Thank you. I just wanted to start by thanking the Pan-African Forum, the
SADC Parliamentary Forum.
SADC Parliamentary Forum for inviting us for this consultative meeting. We really appreciate it because this is a very, very important matter, as the Secretary General was explaining. It's not just because it's rampant, but it has also caused a lot of problems despite our constitutions, despite the legal framework that exists, because GBV sits squarely in the traditional system, which is more of a habit, and it's very difficult to deal with unless we really do everything possible. So I really, I'm really excited about this model law. And I think it's not only comprehensive, but I also appreciate the approach taken. Maybe that's why it's very rich. Being able to include everybody, including those who oppose the system, like the traditional leaders, including those who are involved in police and those who are judges. And so it's very, very important that right on the onset of the process of this model law, everybody was invited so that you see their points of view, their challenges, and the ways of how to resolve the problem. So I really appreciate this, and maybe this is why the model law is very rich, and it has come up with very nice recommendations on how to deal with the issues of gender-based violence. The second area I want to comment is the clear definition of GBV. This thing, GBV is of course a human rights issue, but in many areas it's treated like something that you can accommodate or deal with later. People don't take it seriously unless you define it very well, like SADC has defined, then people begin to understand why we should focus on it. So I really like the definition very much because it clearly explains why there should be action. I really like that. The other area where I think it's also very, very focused is the access to justice. This is where the gist of the matter is. There are laws, you can have even institutional framework set up, but somehow you find that those affected by GBV normally have very little access to justice, particularly women and children. So really thinking clearly about that and making sure that the law talks clearly about it and how this can be achieved it makes it easy for those who are drafting national laws, those who want to review their laws. It becomes easier to really compare what you have, the issues you are having, whether they are covered under that law, whether it's covered under that institutional setup that you have in your nation, or you need to look through this model law to see where there are gaps and how to bring on board all those institutions, how to create justice, how to create access, how to create awareness so that those who provide legal system are aware of their responsibility towards dealing with the JBV. So I think that issue of access to justice is very fundamentally important, because we take it for granted very often. We think because the police is there, because the courts are there, people who meet with JBV are covered, but they're not, because not many people understand this thing called JBV that normally affect women. I would want to conclude by the very special attention you pay to regular monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. This again is very, very important. All these documents end up with either the police or the judges, and it may sit there for years. But we do not make effort to see if JBV is increasing or it's being addressed well, and what category of people are being affected. Once reporting is done and you do evaluation, it's quite possible to continuously work on making it possible to address this issue. I really see this model law as going beyond what we normally do to open up new areas where we can focus on to make the law more effective than what we have in our partner states, in our constitution, in international tools, because you can have very excellent international tools for JBV or even human rights. But if you don't have national setup, legal setup, and people involved and people clear to address it, those things will sit in our libraries, or it will sit in our parliaments, it will sit in all those institutions, and women or those affected by JBV will continue to suffer. So really, I appreciate the way the law is drafted. Of course, it's excellent as a tool for comparing what we have, but it's really good, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with the EALA Parliament and see as women caucus what we can draw from this, and use it also to see what we have and whether we have gaps in our own regional laws and also in our partner states. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the way it's set up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leonardo, for the very positive commendation regarding the model law, both in terms of process and also in terms of content. Let me assure you, as the Director of Ceremonies, that all the positive things that you are going to say about the model law, I'll take, and all the challenges you are going to present, I will submit to the Secretary General, who is in the meeting. So I take the positives. I will submit to the SG any challenges. So we appreciate that. And on that note, let me also assure you that we shall provide an opportunity for EALA to deliver solidarity statement on the occasion of the adoption of the model law during the 50th Plenary Assembly. So an invitation shall be extended to EALA in this regard. Thank you very much once more. I'm sure the legal drafter has taken note and will actually be able to respond. The Secretary General, as I said, is in the meeting, will also be able to take the floor where she deems necessary. At this juncture, I wish to recognize Honorable Dr. Kalila. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. Good morning to all the participants. My name is Dr. Kalila from the National Assembly of Zambia and currently chairing the Health Committee. First, I would like to congratulate the Secretary General, the SADC PF, for yet another milestone in trying to bring the model law on GBV to fruition. I have two questions to the drafter, Madam Ivajala. Good morning. I'm very proud to see you speaking because I know what you have done for our great country, Zambia.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Zambia,
sir.
yes. So basically, my first question is, in Zambia, we do have the Anti-GBV law or act, which I'm sure you drafted, Madam Jala. I want to find out whether it meets the basic tenets of the model law which you have presented. In other words, does our law meet the tenets that you have presented to this August House? The second question maybe may not necessarily be for you, but I just want to know within the SADC region, out of the SADC countries, how many have this GBV or anti-GBV law? How many of us, like we have here in Zambia, how many others do have? And thirdly, if there are any parliamentarians on this group, I would like to hear what we can do to ensure that as many of our member states actually domesticate this very important piece of legislation which is being proposed by SADC PF. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions, Honorable Dr. Kalila. I wish to give the floor to Honorable Felicitas Motimedi.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be called honorable. I'm Felicitas from Child Rights Network for Southern Africa. I want to start off firstly by congratulating the SG and the SADC PF for another regional framework that can facilitate for this region to actually deal with the social ills that do hinder development. We really do congratulate you on that. The organization that I am coming from is a child-focused regional network, and it's great to see us dealing with issues of gender-based violence. I just wanted to check whether we would want to create structures at national level for member states within SADC to also ensure that the structures that are responding to GBV are structures that really facilitate for violence that is meted towards children and ensure that they're child friendly. And whether within the framework itself, the model law itself, we would perhaps have role clarity that can facilitate for member states to also ensure that in those structures, they actually do have child-friendly approaches that can facilitate for us to really address these issues right from the stage of childhood right to adulthood. Thank you so much, and greetings to honorable members in the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Felicitas, for the question. I saw Honorable Pamela Marseille. You have the floor from EALA.
Yes, thank you. I would like also to congratulate the presenter for the good presentation. I can just say that the presentation was good and it really caters across, and it has all the content relating to the GBV. And as the presentation had covered that we have serious problem about this, especially with this African continent, but we still need a collaborative efforts from different areas. And my main point here I was thinking that how are we going to ensure that the partner states which are within the SADC ECOWAS have these laws and they are ready to support this movement, because we really need to be practical. Sometimes we politicians, we know the way we establish many laws, but in the implementation, it becomes a challenge. So my question was, how many countries are already having this policy or having the laws in place, so that when we're moving, we know at least we have a majority of the countries supporting this move. Otherwise, we should be just doing the policies, the laws, which will not be practical, and at the end of the day, our efforts might not be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that question. I really appreciate the questions, and at this juncture, let me allow the legal drafter to respond. You have the floor, Madam ELALA.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me begin by thanking all the honorable members and the participants for the kind words shared, congratulating us on a job well done in coming up with the model law. Honorable Annie Leonardo said a lot of positive issues in relation to the model law. She emphasized issues relating to the inclusiveness of the model law and was happy as to the approach taken, especially so that the model law sits in the area of traditional systems. And as that, we've made the definitions of GBV very clear and taken a human rights-based approach in doing so. And she was very happy with that. So everyone will be clear as to the extent and scope of the model law without any doubts. She was happy as to the focus of the model law on access to justice, as that was the gist of the fight against GBV. And that this would make it so much easier for national parliaments to incorporate such provisions in their law when they do a review of their national laws on GBV. She was also very happy with how we've incorporated provisions on monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. As without these, the fight against GBV would not be effective. We need to ensure that we have institutional structures set up at national level that will be able to carry out these important functions. Honorable, thank you so much. These reflections on the model law will help us improve on the model law and enhance its provisions. We thank you quite a lot. Let me turn to Dr. Kalila, MP from the National Parliament, National Assembly of Zambia. Honorable, thank you very much. Thank you for recognizing me. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yes, Honorable, the gender-based violence model law in Zambia does exist, but unfortunately, I did not draft it. I don't know who drafted it, but I was asked to do a critique on it. And I did present my critique to the National Assembly members at that time. And I was not too happy with it because it leaves a lot of questions to be answered. It is not drafted in a streamlined manner to incorporate all the necessary instruments and measures that would make the fight against GBV efficacious. So, Honorable, I would urge your committee to relook at that Anti-Gender Based Violence Act and ensure that it does conform with the basic tenets of the GBV model law. On the issue of how many laws, how many member states have gender-based violence laws, I'll leave that to our Honorable SG to answer, because she has the figures. On the issue of the domestication of the model law, we have tried our best in the model law to assist member states domesticate the provisions of the model law, operate it progressively. We do understand, Honorable Member, that some member states, for example, do not take kindly to issues of different sexual orientations, the LGBT community. We understand that. But we do also persuade member states to reach the gold standard at one point or the other. The model law does not force member states to put into their national laws everything that's in the model law. But we do state that it's a golden standard to progressively achieve all the provisions of the model law for purposes of equity, equality, and embracing every person's human rights. So that's what the model law is all about. Let me turn to Ma'am Felicitas Moti-Medi. I hope I pronounced it well. Thank you again for the congratulations to SADC on another framework to deal with the social anti-provisions in our societies. Yes, the model law does focus on measures, strategies, and networking in relation to the fight against GBV. It does also create the structures. So if you turn to starting from page part 6, which deals with prevention, protection, support, and intervention measures for victims, you'll find that these are very, very elaborate. They don't only provide for the structures that must be created, but also for protection orders for both the victim and the children. So it is very much child-focused. If you take, for example, Section 60 and 61, 60 provides for financial empowerment programs for women and children. 61 provides for educational and social measures to empower women and children, and so forth. So yes, we've tried as much as possible not to leave the children behind. We know how important it is for the child to be protected when the mother or father is in harm's way. So thank you very much for that comment. If we lack any focus on it, we shall relook at the provisions and ensure we enhance them. Turning to Honorable Pamela Simon Mercy. Thank you again for pointing out that we have tried to cover all issues on GBV in the model law. But you have emphasized the need for collaborative efforts and the need to be practical and face implementation challenge. And we've tried as far as is possible, although at the same time to harness the future into the model law to ensure that we're as practical as possible, that during implementation, the tools and the guidance on how to implement the GBV model law and prevent GBV occurring or help the victims of GBV are placed and focused in the model law. So we'll relook at those issues to ensure that we've done it to the best of anyone's endeavors. How many, again, you brought that up as to how many member states have these laws? Again, I shall defer the issue on the model laws, on the national laws, to the Secretary General. I thank you. And I hope I've answered most of the issues raised.
Thank you very much, Madam Eva, for the responses. I see the Honorable Ibrahim, the third Deputy Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament. You have the floor, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Merci, Monsieur le Président de séance. Et je m'excuse, je m'étais levée entre-temps, mais je voudrais d'abord vous remercier pour cette opportunité que vous nous donnez et à participer à cet important forum sur les violences basées sur le genre. L'heure est certainement à la solidarité et ce cadre que moi j'appellerais un cadre de réflexion des hommes et femmes engagés est important pour juguler ces violences dans tous nos pays. Et j'aimerais insister sur 2 points. L'accès à la justice, parce que une chose est d'être victime, l'autre c'est d'accéder à la justice et dans tout le sens du mot. Et nous devons faire en sorte que le projet de loi type puisse prendre en compte cet aspect et même dans l'applicabilité de la loi. Oui, j'ai droit à la justice, mais comment je paie cette justice? Est-ce que c'est gratuit pour moi, victime? Oui, j'ai droit à la justice, j'ai des preuves à donner que j'ai été violée. Mais lorsque j'arrive devant le médecin, je dois payer l'analyse qui permet de prouver que j'ai été violée. Donc, c'est des aspects que nous devons prendre en compte. L'autre aspect qui a certainement été déjà évoqué, c'est l'homosexualité. Si nous voulons que notre loi type soit adoptée par tous les pays, nous devons examiner la manière d'aborder la question. Certainement, tous les êtres humains sont égaux devant la loi. Et donc, est-ce qu'il faut prendre la personne humaine entièrement ou est-ce qu'il faut la prendre sous l'angle de l'homosexualité? Et donc, la présentatrice l'a dit, peut-être qu'il faudrait trouver des fédères et tous les pays parce que je sais que certains pays n'accepteraient pas juste à cause de cet aspect-là et adhérer à ce que nous sommes en train de faire pour protéger les femmes, les enfants et les hommes victimes de violences. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The emphasis on the need for domestication of the model law I wish to recognize Bridget Filion from the IPU. You have the floor, Bridget.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like first to thank the SADC Parliamentary Forum for inviting the IPU to this very important consultation process. And I would like to join my voice to the order that said that that congratulate the SADC and especially the honorable legal drafter for this very good GBV model law and the vast consultation process to ensure the public participation around this model law. And of course, the comprehensive nature of this model law. I really salute the great work that was made to encompass all the aspect of prevention, sanction, and access to justice, and the definition also is very, very comprehensive, and it will be very useful, I think, for all the legislature in the world. And I have one observation, maybe more a question to the legal drafter regarding what we call the emerging form of gender-based violence, and I would like to know how this model law will is taking them into account, or will take them into account, or should take them into account. And I'm thinking in particular about online gender-based violence, and especially including the online sexual exploitation and abuse of against children, in particular young girls, young boys, and also against women, intimidation, sexual harassment that can happen online, what we call revenge porn, and sexist attacks also that we know. And another form also of gender-based violence that I would like to raise attention of is, and I would like to know how the model law is taking into account the right to participate in political and public life without violence, and especially without gender-based violence. And I'm thinking about, girls, women activists, bloggers, also voters during election process. Sometimes there's very violent act against women, especially women voters, and also all the violence against women in politics. We know that women in decision making in political women women having a political mandate are facing also lots of gender-based violence, because as a way to silence them, to show that they do not belong in the political space. So that is more, my questions. How the model law will is taking that into account. I just want to make sure that all the good protection that is in the model law will be easy to provide to victim of online violence, and also victim of violence against women or gender-based violence in polity and political life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bridget, for that question. For those questions, I'm sure the drafter is taking note and will be able to respond to them. Do we have any further questions from other participants? Maybe we can proceed to allow you to respond, Madam Jala, as we wait to go into the next round of questions. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you once again, for the congratulatory messages. We shall keep trying. Let me turn to Honorable Ibrahima, the third Deputy Speaker at ECOWAS. She emphasized on access to justice and stated that victims must really access justice. Yes, that is the aim. That's the core of the model law. We've dealt with access to justice very widely so that we ensure that this does take place by providing the roles and responsibility of each and every service provider that we envisage will come into contact with victims and perpetrators of GBV. Thank you very much. We also, or she also, dealt with the issue of adoption of the model law and emphasized that all member states or all states should domesticate or adopt a model law. Because at the end of the day, we are all equal before the law. And we can't agree more with her. And we do add our voice to the voice of Honorable Ibrahima. Thank you very much for that comment. Honorable Bridget Filion from the IPU. Thank you again for the congratulatory message. And thank you for stating that we did a good job in its content, and also to the fact that SADC PF has had vast consultations on it, thereby ensuring inclusivity. Thank you very much. You are hoping that the model law is all-encompassing in dealing with GBV, as it will be very helpful to all legislatures globally. And we wish to assure you that we have tried to be very comprehensive in scope. You asked a question or two questions. The first one dealing with online GBV harassment, especially in relation to children, sexual harassment, revenge forms, and sexist issues. We've tried to cover all these issues by cross-referencing such matters to Cybercrimes Acts and all other relevant penal acts impacting on GBV. But let me assure you that I'll take a real look at those provisions to ensure that they actually bring out this fact without any doubt. As to the participation of women in public life without violence, women in politics without violence, in order to silence them, to remove them from the political space. May I say again that yes, in the policy directions of the GBV model law, we've tried to deal with this aspect. But once again, let us relook at those provisions to ensure that we tighten them and we add words that will ensure that women will be free from violence in politics and the political space, and that they effectively will participate in public life without fear. without negative impacts on their integrity and well-being. We thank you so much for that comment. It's most helpful. Over to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Madam Eva. At this juncture, I wish to check with participants if there are any further questions and comments. The floor is open. PAP, CPA, if you do have any further questions, please, the floor is open for you.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Apologies.
Oh, yes. Madam, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Benita, maybe before you take the floor, allow me to give the floor to the Secretary General. There were certain questions that were directed to her, which we have not yet been dispensed with. And then I'll give you the floor immediately after. Honorable Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. I just wish to indicate that, like the drafter stated, before we embarked on this process, we actually did an inventory or a review of gender-based violence legislation in the SADC region. And we did not rank countries in terms of which one does better than the other, because as you know, there are a lot of intersections that link to the issue of GBV and various elements that the legal drafter has basically touched on, which were taken on board or when the drafting was being done. But what I can share, some of the highlights were that some of our member states have not fully domesticated some of the GBV-related provisions that they signed for in international instruments. It was also noted that in some countries, laws related to the elimination of GBV are not harmonized, as inconsistencies have been noted, like the legal drafter indicated at the beginning, and that 5 out of the 16 SADC countries explicitly provide for equality of men and women in their constitutions, while other countries are gender neutral in the provisions of equality. And 6 out of 16 SADC countries do not recognize marital rape as an offense and therefore do not legislate against it. Lastly, that 10 out of 16 countries allow for child marriages below 18 years old if consent from parents or an authority is obtained, and that many countries only have provisions for sexual harassment in their countries and do not allow for other provisions. I thank you for that. This is just to emphasize that while provisions exist in our countries, there's emphasis for us to reconcile and met out certain emphasis around what should be done when this actually occurs, but we did not rank them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SG, for that expose with regards to the state of affairs with regards to law in terms of member states on GBV. At this juncture, I wish to give you the floor, Benite Dibateza from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Assembly.
Thank you very much, moderator. And again, thank you to my esteemed honourable members and colleagues for your contributions. Again, I want to re-echo the sentiment that has been expressed by everyone in attendance to just congratulate SADC for this very important and groundbreaking, piece of work that has been developed. And I'm very, very, very confident that it will definitely advance our goal to promote gender equality across, of course, the continent and far beyond. So again, congratulations. I think I just wanted to go back briefly to, I think, the definition that was listed, I guess, at the beginning. And again, it might be just a brief a comment I've noted, I think, the definition that was provided, I guess the UN definition of gender-based violence. I've had a quick look, and I think, again, the definition that was provided, correct me if I'm wrong, again, Honourable Member who's drafted the legislation, is actually in line with the definition that's provided for violence against women, which, of course, according to what the UN has defined, and of course UNHCR differs to what GBV is. And UN Women actually defines gender-based violence and refers it to harmful acts directed at an individual or group of individuals based on their gender. And this is rooted in gender equality, the abuse of power, and harmful norms. So I guess my comment is just to kind of encourage, of course, all colleagues who are working on such an important document to just review the UN definition. Because again, that definition is what's used to define violence against women and girls, and not necessarily gender-based violence. Again, I think I want to, of course, briefly mention the section on access to data and information. I think that's very, very important. And again, commend the work that's been done on that. Of course, as we all know, that data and information in the hands of the wrong people could be very, very harmful. And I guess at this point, I just would like to re-echo and emphasize the importance that I think should be, of course, further pushed between the difference between confidentiality versus transparency. And we at the CPA last October actually developed an anti-harassment policy guidelines in which we sent out to our member branches, which are represent, of course, subnational national parliaments across the Commonwealth. And in that anti-harassment guideline, we did provide, I guess, a definition of what, of course, confidentiality and transparency is. And I guess in a nutshell is confidentiality is the act of containing information of private or sensitive nature about an individual. And of course, transparency is the disclosure of information to individuals of such important information that, of course, that we understand that if it goes out, it could not only breach laws, but also be detrimental to the persons that we're trying to protect, which in this case, of course, are the victims. And of course, the witnesses. So I guess the call is, of course, to just encourage to further, perhaps if not done so already, if there isn't any thought to further, of course, emphasize the need to be both confidential and transparent, and just highlighting that there is a fine line, and that, of course, National Parliament should be very much aware of that fine line. Of course, a breach of each could have significant ramifications. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that remark, and the drafter has taken note. I wish to recognize the colleague from the Pan-African Parliament and give you the floor.
Thank you very much, MC, for giving me the floor. I also want to add my voice to thank SADC GBV for inviting Pan-African Parliament and also bringing us together as a regional parliaments to discuss this important model law. And as Pan-African Parliament, we're really happy to participate in this consultative meeting. And also, we are going to take note of this model law, and I'm sure we are going to share it with our parliamentary committee, and we'll be very happy to receive SADC GBV to make a presentation to Pan-African Parliament in our coming sitting. I will also be very grateful if Madam Eva share with us her presentation. So also we can keep it as a report and also sharing it with our colleague here at the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Nasse. We appreciate. I wish to recognize Honorable Kwamboka from EPF. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, and thank you for the honorable title. I do coordinate as a focal point for Africa for the European Parliamentary Forum. And particularly the parliamentarians that I particularly support are champions who are actually keen on advancing the protection of sexual reproductive health and rights, and of course preventing gender-based violence in the European Parliament and also in different national parliaments where they work. So first is to really share in the great, congratulatory message to the SADC PF, to the drafter, and all those who have been involved in putting this piece together. And my particular contribution this morning is really touching on a key element that Madam SG Boemo raised during her opening remarks. And it is indeed profound that this draft or model law on GBV is actually an element that can be utilized as an element that really enhances multilateral parliamentarism, not only in Africa, but across the world and in different regions as well. And I say this because this morning is evident there are representations of parliamentarians and parliamentary networks from outside the SADC region. So as much as this instrument is named a SADC GBV Model Law, it is already showing signs of utilization of practical reference outside the SADC region. And my plea this morning is going out not only to SADC Parliamentary Forum, but to all the parliamentary groups that are represented here, that this may be the beginning of a conversation that brings together all of us to influence and take a position to rewrite the narrative at the global, international level in matters concerning GBV and how they need to be addressed within the parliamentary space or within the legislative space. So it is probably a consequence of this great effort that we actually have an opportunity to make a difference and start considering a push that we can have at the global level to rewrite this conversation and to provide guidance and a pace to other parliaments to embrace this narrative and bring to speed the kind of issues that are being addressed, especially the access to justice, the protection of victims, the expedition and addressing of all the contestations that may still be existing in different countries that may prevent its success. So this is a great advocacy opportunity as much as it is a legislative opportunity. Thank you very much, and I do recognize great champions in the call, Honorable Dr. Kalila and others who will be joining as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those remarks and for appreciating the ongoing work and the ongoing collaboration between and amongst regional parliaments to advance issues of human rights within the context of seeking to eliminate jointly the problem of gender-based violence. I wish to check with the other participants if anyone may wish to take the floor and put forward a question before we give the floor to the drafter to respond.
Hello, everyone.
Madam, yes.
Thank you. My name is Peter. I'm trusting that I'm audible enough. My name is Peter.
Yes, you are audible, Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My name is Peter. I'm coming in from Kenya. This is an area of great interest for me. And allow me to mention also that I'm a drafter. So I come in on the technical aspect of things, I want to associate myself with a few comments which have been well put out and which I find to be very accurate, that the model law as proposed will have a super spreader effect, to begin with in the African continent, then globally. But quite realistically, I want to view GBV as more of a culturally encouraged practice, as unfortunate as it is. So when you consider, say, the Western nations, this may not be a problem there. They may have arrested this through their laws, through their various systems, justice systems. But this is more of a problem for us in this part of the world. This is a good first move, and of course, provides a platform for the operation of scenarios that are unique to different states, given their unique circumstances. So I'm happy to participate in this. Allow me to say that informally, I can take a look at the draft that was earlier shared and share my views informally as we look forward to future engagements. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter. We appreciate your commendation. And at this juncture, let me hand over to the draft to respond.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Honorable Benita Bateza of CPA. Again, thank you very much for stating that this is groundbreaking work and that it will advance the fight against GBV globally. You commented on the various definitions, especially on the UN definition of GBV and the UN Women's definition on GBV, and you urged us to look at this, relook at this, and review them in order to ensure that we take a more holistic view of the definitions. So we leave no one behind again. I think that was the urge of that comment. We shall do so. We definitely shall do so. On data information, you were pleased on those issues, but cautioned us to look more closely at confidentiality and transparency, as there is a fine line in these two modes, and they could have implications and consequences depending on how we use them. What else? Take sidelines definitions. Okay, so we will actually look at the anti-harassment guidelines, definitions that you are working on, and I hope you can pass them on to us, as it will be very useful in refining the model law. Thank you very much. Honorable Gadal Nasi from the Pan-African Parliament. You stated that you are very happy to participate in the meetings and will definitely participate in the model law and its development, and that you wish us to share the full presentation of the model law, which I'm sure SADC PF and the Secretary General will be happy to forward to you. Thank you very much. Honorable Kwamboka of the EPC Focal Point for Africa. You actually stated that your work is to advance the protection of sexual reproductive health rights and GBV. So you were happy to participate, and that the GBV
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much, Madam Drafter. I wish to check if there are any participants wishing to take the floor.
Allow me to be on the floor one more time.
By all means, you have the floor.
This is Peter. Thank
Yes.
you. Perhaps this is directly to Eva. I wrote an email on the email shared on the chat, but I got a bounce back. But I would be happy to have Eva's email at a technical level for consultation purposes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. I'm sure the SG will avail you that. Thank you very much.
Yes, just to allow me, the message, the email was received and it has been taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I note this.
Thank you, SG, for that update. My heart nearly skipped because that email must not bounce back. So it's good that the message has been received. I see Madam Deputy Speaker, ECOWAS Parliament. You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Modérateur.
Thank you so much, Program Director. I would like to congratulate once more the drafter for the work achieved or for the work done. And I would like to say that we are proud of the work that has been done. I'm currently the representative at ECOWAS, but in my country, I have taken care of the GBV at different level, and I have participated at this process, and I would like to have the email of Honorable Jala so that we can continue our discussions. Thank you so much. If you can share the email address. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the SG will take care of that. Thank you so much for your comments, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam, for the comments. Any opportunities, any further opportunities being sought to submit comments? I will once again allow the drafter to respond if there is anything that may wish to respond on before we move to the next section of the program.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to reiterate my thanks and support coming from everyone, it really gives me encouragement to do even better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Eva, the always lively as ever. We appreciate that. I see Sonia and Mbira, you wish to take the floor, please proceed.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator, I was not taking the floor. I was just giving congratulations to the drafter. In fact, it was just clapping hands. So I was just, yes, thank you for the wonderful session and all the comments. It was just to appreciate her. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's sincerely appreciated. Kwamboka, I see a hand. This is also a reaction. Appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are there any further questions? I want to make sure that everyone who wishes to make comments, observations, and ask questions have been accorded the opportunity before we move to the next section of the program. I don't seem to see any further opportunities for wanting to take the floor, which then takes us to the next stage of the program, which is the concluding and solidarity statements. and we will accord our guests, who are the representatives of the regional and international parliamentary bodies, to take the floor as indicated on the program. So in this regard, may I request EALA to take the floor and deliver the concluding and solidarity statements. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I would like to start to thank the SADC Parliamentary Forum for inviting us, and also thank all those who have participated in putting this document together. And my congratulations on behalf of the Right Honorable Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, Right Honorable Martin Gonga, and the EALA Women Parliamentary Caucus, and the rest of the members. Indeed, this document is very, very timely and very important. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, as it came out very clearly that this document represents all our interests, and what is left is building on our solidarity and to be able to work together in particularly helping to go through it and see if our partners and the regional organizations can adapt and fast track it so that the issue related to gender-based violence can be addressed quickly, because it's not only a human right, but it affects a good majority of our people, and it affects the lives of our communities and our country as well. So I go away thanking you, but pledging our solidarity with you as you go through the remaining processes of this model law. And we will take this back and see how best we can share it as EALA Parliament, but also see how we can carry the document to our 6 member states, and very soon it will be 7 member states as the Democratic Republic of Congo joins the East African community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leonardo, for those words of solidarity. Let me assure you that you are not going anywhere, because we shall make sure that we stay together in as we move forward with the model law. After all, 2 of your partner states are also members of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. So by the time when you get to tell them, they will also be telling you that they were part of the process. In fact, may it also please you to know that the motion to develop the model law was actually sponsored by the Regional Women's Parliamentary Caucus of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, which is the equivalent of your Women's Caucus, and that provides scope for further collaboration and solidarity going forward as we focus on maximizing on domestication. May I also inform the participants that this model law is coming in at a time when the recent SADC summit has approved the transformation of the SADC Parliamentary Forum into a SADC parliament. And we do know that EALA has been one of the parliaments that have worked hand in hand with SADC PF in this regard. And we therefore look forward to further collaboration in this context. We appreciate your encouragement and your partnership as a sister regional parliament. Thank you. At this juncture, I wish to invite ECOWAS Parliament to deliver their concluding and solidarity statement. Madam Deputy Speaker, you are muted. Hello, Madam Deputy Speaker, you are on mute.
Pardon, excusez-moi. Je disais
Thank
que
you.
je réitère mes remerciements et félicitations à Madame Eva et aux
Sorry, I was just saying that I say thank you again to Eva for the job well done. And we will do our best to, at ECOWAS Parliament, to make sure that we emphasize and remind our laws that exist. And I have to say that it's really urgent to each member state to be really strict to denounce to any violence which is based on sex, and also to actually stress the value, the moral value that exists, as well as the respect to life, the respect to freedom. And this fight is really a general fight for each and every one of us. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those words of solidarity. We appreciate Madam from ECOWAS Parliament, and indeed the ECOWAS Parliament is one of the parliaments we have looked up to for inspiration when we have been walking through the journey of transformation from a SADC Parliamentary Forum into a regional parliament, and we have benchmarked quite a lot. We have worked together. We have even at one point sent a mission to understand the ECOWAS Parliament. So we view and value that collaboration and partnership with ECOWAS Parliament. We also appreciate that you could spare time to attend this event. As I indicated, we shall extend an invitation to ECOWAS Parliament to be present at the 50th Plenary Assembly, where this model law will be adopted, and we look forward to your participation. Thank you very much. Allow me at this juncture to invite the representative of the Pan-African Parliament to deliver concluding and solidarity statement.
Thank you very much, my colleague, and also on behalf of the Clerk of Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Gbv Harawa, I want to add my voice to thank SADC BF for inviting Pan-African Parliament and also bringing us together as a regional parliament. And I think we should continue as regional parliament to meet often to discuss such issues, and also if we can continue also sharing our experience in model law. Also, Pan-African Parliament is working on some model laws, and we will share the presentation with the SADC BF, and also maybe can share it with other colleagues. And as Pan-African Parliament, we let me say again that we are looking forward to receive SADC BF representative to make a presentation on this important model law to committees of Pan-African Parliament, and also to share it with Pan-African Parliament Women Caucus. So also we can channel it through our procedure to share it with our members and member states present in Pan-African Parliament. I'm very grateful also to listen to the debate and comments, and I hope we will continue working together and also participating more in such event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nasri, for the commendation. We commit to honor the request when it has come through for SADC PF to come and be able to share the model law with the organs of the Pan-African Parliament. We also welcome your call for continued collaboration between regional parliaments and international parliaments. We are very clear at the SADC Parliamentary Forum that we are one of the legs on which the Pan-African Parliament stands, and we will continue to do our part as a parliament of the Regional Economic Community of Southern Africa to support and collaborate with the Pan-African Parliament. Thank you once more for your participation and for those words. At this juncture, I wish to invite the IPU representative to take the floor and deliver the words of solidarity in conclusion.
Hi, I'm sorry, I didn't know I will have to do a statement at the end, but so I'm not prepared. But I just would like to say that I really this is a great initiative, and I really appreciate it, and I will report all what has been said here at this meeting to the Secretary General of the IPU, and I'm sure that we will have occasion in the near future to promote this very important model law, especially that in November. IPU will have his assembly, a general assembly, after 2 years without assembly with the COVID epidemic. So it would be an occasion to promote this model law, and I'm very happy also to announce that during around the 25th November and the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, the IPU will be launching a new study, regional study on violence, sexism, harassment, and violence against women in parliament in Africa. It's a huge research that we've been doing in the last year, and so the findings of the study will be revealed on November 25, and I think it's a good occasion also to make a link with the model law on your model law on gender-based violence. So we look forward to continue this collaboration with the SADC Parliamentary Forum. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bridget. You remind me of the words of my grandfather. He says, "I don't understand the educated people. You always want to write something before you speak." He prefers what comes out of the heart. So the upside of not having been made aware is that you poured out your heart, and we could feel it. Thank you so much. We appreciate. And again, the IPU and SADC Parliamentary Forum draw from the same pool in terms of part of your membership. Our members are part of your membership. And as a result, we therefore share that common code in terms of fighting GBV. And we look forward to continual collaboration. We have walked a long journey with IPU at the SADC Parliamentary Forum when we developed the benchmarks for democratic legislatures in Southern Africa. I remember vividly that we drew a lot of inspiration from the IPU, and many of the tools that IPU have developed, we have made use of them. I also know that at the onset of the coronavirus, when parliaments were trying to figure out how best to support each other and to remain operational, fulfilling their mandate, in view of the new circumstances and challenges, we collaborated with IPU and other regional and international parliaments to create the normative framework that parliaments benefited from and were able to develop rules of procedure under the circumstances to be able to remain operational. So we should continue to strengthen those lines of solidarity and interparliamentary cooperation. At this juncture, I wish to invite Bridget and to invite CPA representative to Benite to take the floor and deliver concluding and solidarity statement.
Thank you very much. And similar to my colleague from IPU, I was also not prepared to provide remarks. So again, I will just be rolling off the top of my head, but I've made a few notes. But thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for representing the CPA here at today's meeting. It was great to hear the contributions from my esteemed honourable members who, of course, represent many of the branches who form part of the CPA's membership, but of course to hear from many of organisations of which the CPA has a history of partnership with, or if not, is looking forward to partner with in the near future. I will also be reporting, of course, what I've heard to our Secretary General, who also extends his apologies, as unfortunately the CPA Executive Committee is actually meeting this week, so he's engaged in meetings pertaining to that. But again, thank you for the opportunity. And of course, it's very much pleasing, of course, to hear that, of course, the work that's being done by SADC is very much in line with the Commonwealth Women's Parliamentarians Network, of which I'm a network coordinator on. Essentially, the goal of the CWP is to, of course, promote the representation of women in Commonwealth parliaments and to ensure that they have a full and equal participation in all political and parliamentary leadership. So clearly, the work that's been done so far is very much in line with that. At the CWP, our members, women parliamentarians, are very, very keen and eager to, of course, speak on matters and issues pertaining to gender-based violence. Because unfortunately, as mentioned during the conversation, many women parliamentarians are affected and impacted by the impact and effects of GBV. So we're very much, again, stand in solidarity with the work that SADC is doing. And as mentioned, the CPA has produced 2 documents that very much interlink with the current work that SADC is doing. As mentioned, of course, we launched and developed an anti-harassment policy toolkit in which was developed for Parliament to address the issue of harassment within the workplace. And of course, that is an issue that was also briefly mentioned in the model law, of which an area that the model law seems would like to address. So the CPA has launched that and developed that toolkit and has embarked on a series of briefings in which we support Parliament to develop policies that are that combat harassment. And also, I think it also might be worth noting, and pleased to know that we're also doing work on gender-sensitive parliaments, again, which also links with the work that, of course, the region is doing. We actually did host a series of roundtables for our African region, which, of course, constitute many of the parliaments who are present here today. But with that being said, I'm more than happy to share, of course, the resources that we have to that, which may be of great assistance and use to colleagues in SADC. But of course, just to wrap up, again, the CWP and CPA is very committed to supporting SADC and, of course, advance and promote this document. And we look forward to the possibility of partnering and collaborating on such projects and similar projects that seek to promote gender equality across the African continent, the Commonwealth and beyond. And once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benita. And out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks, and one could not help but appreciate how you were outpouring your heart. And we take note of the offer to share the knowledge tools that CPA has developed. Indeed, it is also in line with our mandate at the SADC Parliamentary Forum as part of the capacity building of our members to develop knowledge tools. So please, by all means, proceed and share. We will be happy to collaborate in areas of mutual interest, as we have done in the past. The CPA and SADC have collaborated in the past, including in the area of developing the benchmarks for democratic legislatures, among other areas. At this juncture, I wish to check Honorable Marie. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Thank you very much. You just know how to make me happy. I was looking around, and I wasn't sure, and I'm happy that you are in the meeting. So you are going to give the ultimate address. Honorable Marie Rosie Nguyen Efa. He is the president of the African Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development. We are greatly honored to have you in the meeting. We do know that we ambushed you, but like the true soldier you are, you were ready to join us and help the SADC region and regional and international parliaments to kick out the problem of gender-based violence from within our communities and societies. So we really appreciate. I wish to give you this floor to address, to give the ultimate address on the, in terms of conclusion and solidarity statement. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. But since everybody is speaking English, I think that I will speak in French. So please.
We do have interpretation, so okay. That's well in order, ma'am.
Okay. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I am really honored for this privilege that has been offered to me to make some solidarity remarks in the name of the African Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development. Thank you very much for your effort that has been done to draft this model law on to. And I am really impressed by the number of attention that has been raised to try and put everything together. And also, I'm pleased with the comments that were offered from the participants. I'd like to say that all the victims are really critical, and we really want to tackle this issue. And in the name of the Parliamentary Forum on Discrimination, and I know that it's also spread in about 5 countries in Africa. We really stand together, and I promise that we're going to take this law and incorporate it in our existing law. And we're going to incorporate also the domestic violence, because as we know that it's really extending even in our problem on top of the COVID. So we would like really to help the victims that are really left without help, and we want them to access justice. So we do not want to leave the victims alone, and we really want them to access justice, and also that we incorporate all the aspects that are linked to the GBV. I also want to reiterate the need for us to fight against violence based on violence, and that we can have a new conversation at the level of the continent and internationally, and also in our region. And so violence and gender-based violence is a real problem that we cannot emphasize. We know that to really resolve it, we need an effort that is going to involve everyone. That violence does not have religion, does not have color, does not have any race. So we really need to emphasize again in our different parliament. Now, from this model that has been developed by the SADC, now we have opportunity to look at it and to mobilize ourselves and to bring our participation into the law in order to analyze it and adopt it. That the Parliamentary Forum has put in place means to draft this allow us as parliamentarians to really tackle the them and also to ensure that we domesticate it within our region. So I'm just going to say something which would say that why don't we do something regionally so that everybody can take part of it. I thank you again for the floor that you've given me. And congratulations.
Thank you very much for the commendation. We sincerely appreciate, and we appreciate that you could still find time to join our meeting in spite of the short notice we gave you to attend to the meeting. We sincerely appreciate. We believe this is the birth of many more years of collaboration with the SADC region and your organization. We sincerely appreciate. At this juncture, we have come to the end of our meeting, and I wish to sincerely thank every one of you, the representatives of sister parliamentary organizations and the other stakeholders who were in the meeting. We have been able to receive your feedback regarding the draft model law on gender-based violence. It has become clear that this is a transboundary issue and an issue of concern to all of us. Let's continue to explore how we can collaborate, as already indicated by the SADC Parliamentary Forum through the Secretary General. We are committed as an institution to sustain this collaboration, the interparliamentary solidarity and cooperation in this area and many other areas. And we shall continue to knock on your doors to make sure that we strengthen the role of Parliament in building our democracies and in building resilient communities where human rights are respected, the rights to health, the right to life, the right to personal dignity are respected. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. At this juncture, allow me to invite my colleague from media. I'm sure he may wish to take a group photograph, and he will guide us on how we do that under the circumstances. Mr. Modise, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can I request all participants to please switch on their cameras? Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can I request all participants to switch on their cameras?
You have a second gadget, Modise, and it's giving feedback.
Sorry, I've just moved away from it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. Could I please kindly request all participants to please switch on their cameras? Wilfred, I'll also request you to switch on yours, please. Madam Jala?
Madam Jala is on.
Oh, maybe my screen is, it looks like my screen is frozen.
Yeah, in fact, we can't see you.
I switched on my camera, but I'm not sure why it's not there. There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you very much. I still have a couple of people that haven't switched on their cameras yet. Mem Peggy Shazo, Rika Nderima, Peter M. Thank you very much, Mr. Kurasha. I think the other colleagues are not going to switch on their cameras. Let me not delay those who've already done so with those beautiful smiles. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome, Modise. Thank you very much. On that bright and a smiley note, please have a wonderful day and a good week ahead. May God bless you. Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome, SG.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant day.
Ciao, likewise.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm trying to turn on my video, but it's unresponsive.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Merci beaucoup. Asante san. Yes. Au revoir. ICT kindly terminate.